This is the One and All Podcast, a proud member of the Dunham Audio Network.
We will always be the same. Our beliefs will be unchanging and unwavering. We believe continually in one truth, but for all humanity. In one Savior, but for all people. One truth that will be delivered in love and compassion, connecting every one person to all that God has promised them.
Thank you for listening to the One and All Podcast. My name is Aaron Magnuson, and I will be your host here on this podcast. And in today's episode, to kick it off, episode number 1, I get to sit down with my good friend and producer of this podcast, Ben Lounsbury. We are going to dive into what this podcast is going to be about, the voices that we're going to have on this podcast, what you can expect for the future of this podcast from day one, all starting right here in this 30-minute conversation. Hope you enjoy. And you go by Ben, not Benjamin, or just however the summoning happens?
Most commonly Ben.
Ben.
But, over the years it's been Benny, it's been Benjamin, usually when I'm in trouble.
Oh, so Benjamin has a little bit more of a...
The younger years. I haven't been in trouble in 15 years at least.
Has your wife ever called you Benjamin?
She has not, actually.
Ever?
No, I don't think... I think only when we're talking about it, not genuinely.
Or affectionately?
I don't think it's ever happened. So I go by Ben Lounsbury.
Lounsbury.
And I get the lovely opportunity of just sitting here and being a fly on the wall in what happens in this room, in this church. Currently, I will serve as the producer of this podcast and whatever else you need. If you need some help in the garage, I will reach out and find somebody else to help you.
But garage band.
Different story.
Completely different.
Yeah. I'll record a podcast on there, so.
And you are probably overqualified for what is happening with this podcast, but what qualifies you to be the producer of One and All Podcast?
Well, I would hope it's just my, I think, desire to do it above all else in just being serious for a minute. It doesn't happen often. I like to joke a lot, so hopefully you catch the sarcasm as we go. But
this is serious.
This is serious. It's something I really care about. And today, I know we've talked about what we want to talk about in terms of just this introductory podcast to One and All, and the desire for it. I have a huge passion and heart for pulling back the curtain when it comes to church, when it comes to, largely organized ministry. I know that from my friends, like pulling back the curtain on what is church and why is church and why is this thing. Friends that I know that aren't regularly involved in community or are part of a church, oftentimes they go, why does church do this, or why does church do that, and why are there, some are small, some are big, some are, some have lights, some don't have lights, some are cold, some are hot. Every which variable. And for this podcast, with all the team members here at One and All Church, yourself included, there's so many different areas. There's the worship creative arts area of the ministry. There's the global outreach. These are large areas of the church. There's a global outreach area of the church. There's local campus pastoralship, local community outreach. And I think when somebody looks at this on a paper, it could be like, well, what are all these things for? And who are these people, and why do they do what they do? More so than what. I think we could talk all day about what people do in certain areas, right. And we'll definitely have an opportunity to do so in this podcast, sit down with a lot of team members here, but talk about ministry every day and mostly why.
Yep.
And even this podcast is what we want to talk about today. Why are we doing it?
Right.
And so let's start there. Let's give some of your heart and some of your thoughts behind this. I know it's been a collective and with a lot of team here a part of this church, One and All, we want to get behind an idea, just pulling back the curtain a little bit.
That's right.
On some of these areas. So
yeah, I think pulling back the curtain is a great way to think about this. It would boil down to a simple word for me, and that's access. And in all the best ways that you think about the word access, I think about access to information, access to understanding, access to the parts, but also access to the people who are doing it. So what I get excited about is all of the people that we have here, which fit the context of One and All Church specifically, but really anybody who's involved in ministry or who's involved in work for the greater good would be able to look at this and look at these people and see a bit of themselves. And so the context is specific to One and All, but the concept is much, much broader than that. And so we hope that you find inspiration in listening to this podcast. But going back to the word access, we hope that you are able to have access to the information and understanding of how the parts work, not just the finished product. A lot of people, the majority of people, especially with a church our size, encounter the finished product, whether that's attending a weekend service, listening to a well thought out, constructed, and delivered message, to a fantastic serve experience. For our outreach team, maybe it's just the experience of going on a missions trip to another country that is just so well put together. But not very many people have access to all that goes into making that so fantastic and so such a good experience for the people who experience it, but also so impactful for the work that's being done, reaching lives. And impacting lives in a really personal way. And all of that takes intentional, strategic decision making. And when you're doing it at a large capacity, we have the privilege of being a part of an organization that does this at a high level, and a large level might be a better word. And so there's a lot that goes into that. And so there's that piece that we want to give access to, but the people who do the work, and who think about the creative process and pray and put energy into seeing that come to fruition from when it's dirt to the finished product of a beautiful statue or whatever it is that you're creating, those people are really interesting. And that actually probably gets me more excited access-wise. I think when we think access and peel the curtain, how does it work? But I get excited about exposing the people that you would never meet.
I'm there as well. I think that's beautiful that you talk about that. You mentioned a couple of things that I think are just so important. A lot of times, if you go, we want to provide access and like information in detail about these things that happen, but more so it's about the people.
Yes.
And like oftentimes it's especially with this next kind of up and coming generation, and as the world progresses and as the church is the steeple and should be a place that can connect with people where they're at and provide solutions and provide the gospel, essentially, to whatever's going on in the present day. I think knowing who people are is such a big piece to that puzzle, because I've heard people say as well that they would say, I don't care what you have to say as much as I do who you are and why you have to say it.
Totally. That's the lens we look through first.
Right.
Who it is, and then you interpret what is said from the who first.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And then you brought up deconstructing messages. Like oftentimes we get the finished product, right? We get the fully researched, the fully like...
Totally. And rightly so. Has
spent time in prayer and preparation and seeking God, going, okay, what are the words that I need to be delivering right now? Something that is on the menu for this season of One and All podcasts is having our lead pastor, Jeff Vines.
Yes.
Jeffrey A. Vines.
Jeffrey A.
He
Vines.
goes by Jeff Vines.
Yes, he does.
I may have given too much information on his middle name. You'll have to ask him yourself if you ever get a chance, but it is a very tightly
it's okay.
sealed secret.
Jeffrey, I was trying to think about where we got that from. Jeffrey A is his Twitter handle, which is not used very frequently, but it's Jeffrey A. Vines, I believe, is his Twitter handle. So I think it's public. That's about as public as it gets.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and I think it's come up in sermons before in the past.
probably
But
okay.
either way,
Yes.
we're digging it up. And Jeffrey A. Vines.
That's right.
I actually don't know if his full name is Jeffrey, but
I don't know either.
it sounds good off the
But
tongue.
we're going to have him on. So this
So
is,
he'll be
this
able
is
to
a
explain
question
it
we
to
can
you.
ask.
Yeah. So we want to have Jeff on.
Probably more than everybody else. Like a regular, he would be a regular,
every few episodes
regular
or so.
attender, yeah.
Because what we want to do is, one, we want to stay connected to the vision
Yes.
for the church, what we're up to, as well as if you don't know Jeff and never heard a sermon, he is an incredible teacher of the Word of God,
Yes.
incredible apologist, incredible communicator.
Yeah.
That it's just, being able to just sit down for 30 minutes to an hour and just pick his brain, ask questions, hear about what goes in, to these messages. I remember he's preached a Christmas sermon a handful of times in his life, and I've heard it a couple of times now, and it has to do with the Magi, the wise men at the time of the birth of Jesus, and their journey of following a star. Right, we've heard it in like tales, children's tales, and things like that, where it was a star in the sky that was illuminated that they followed, and that directed them north into the city of Bethlehem, and all this. So he has a really incredibly researched and enlightening perspective on this story. That I just go, man, to be able to sit down and kind of dig into that is a really cool thing that I'm looking forward to.
Yes. Yeah, just the whole process. And I'm realizing as you were talking and elaborating on access, really a better word, particularly for this generation. Ben, you're 28.
29.
Ben's 29. I will be 29 in March, so we're very close. I'm currently 28 as this podcast is being recorded. Transparency is a better word.
Yeah.
I think access, there's certain parts of the component of the word access that we are talking about, but really it's transparency. And what we want to give people is transparency, both with the people running what's happening here at this organization and with what the organization is doing, the heartbeat of the organization, the things that we're doing, the motivation behind doing it, those sorts of things. And so in a world where transparency is so important, I mean, we have people that give a lot of money, and we have a lot of people who give money to this organization. And I just think anytime money is involved, what is an organization, particularly a nonprofit organization, doing with that money? And this podcast is not about getting money at all. I do want to be clear about that. But I think with transparency, particularly in this world, there's really incredible work that can be done with money.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And particularly living here in America, LA specifically, Southern California, where we're recording these podcasts, or at least the majority of them, we have an opportunity to fund a lot of the work that is done globally, and that global mindedness is prevalent here. I mean, it's why we have the name One&All. It's the heartbeat of Pastor Jeff and what he wants to do, and the ministry that we have and the role that we can play is funding a lot of things. And so being able to be transparent about all aspects of what people are getting behind, and for a lot of people with their checkbooks, getting behind it with their checkbooks is just really important to me, that we show this is what we're doing and this is the impact we're having. Yeah.
Like you said, there's so much stuff globally. I mean, down the road, we'll be able to sit down with some amazing people, some amazing partnerships in ministry that are not just happening here locally in Southern California, but are happening in New Zealand, Australia, and parts of India and Africa. There's so many amazing things going on in this church, and if you don't know already, there's going to be amazing sessions here on the podcast where we sit down with these people. We talk about what they're doing.
Yes.
We talk about how One and All can have a part in it, and then also open up opportunity for you listeners.
Yes.
You could be regular members of this church. You could be staff, and providing information. Hey, here's additional ways you can get involved.
Totally.
And get on board with XYZ, whatever we're talking about
Totally.
that week. And just provide more opportunity for people to get involved in ministry, to feel like we're sitting down and having a conversation together. Like, I think podcasts are such a brilliant way to do that.
Totally.
And sometimes if you're a charitable giver,
Yep.
or if you give a lot of your time and you serve in certain areas and you help the church, sometimes it can feel distant.
Totally.
You can feel like, okay, like, I know I'm putting in the hours, I'm putting in the work, but where's the conversation happening about
That's right.
these things?
That's so good.
And it's not coming from a place of doubt, but it's nice to at least dialogue and know more detail about it. I think
That's
it's
right.
actually additionally inspiring.
Yep. And to add to that, it's community. Like this, we hope this podcast builds community.
Yeah.
Both gives you an access, gives you an opportunity to come alongside us in a more intimate way, but also with other listeners of this podcast, creating conversations, starting things that happen in the comment section, and hopefully move outside of that into more intimate conversations. But we just hope that a community forms, and for the community that is already knocking on the door, that has been waiting for something like this at our church for a really long time. Establishing what is already there and just enhancing further the community that some people are already experiencing with One and All. Community is a big one.
Let's talk about that. Community, absolutely fantastic. And I think what a part of community is being level with each other. And that's part of the transparency thing we're talking about, but being level with each other and basically you actually put it in better words when we were chatting before. Talk about it.
Yeah, I think that we want to make sure that people realize this is also an entertainment-based podcast as well. Like when you're tuning in, you're going to listen to some incredible speakers. You're going to also listen to people who are doing a ton of great ministry work behind the scenes who might never get a microphone.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that the understanding is that this is entertainment.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to have like this deep theological, necessarily every episode is not going to be this deep theological message for 40 minutes that you have to digest and listen to 3 or 4 times.
Well, yeah. The entertainment side is we want it to be, a listener shouldn't have to endure through something, especially when there's such pure, like great messaging behind it. So actually, great quote from Brian Houston from Hillsong Church, global pastor there. He always says church should never be endured.
Never.
It should be enjoyed.
That's right.
And like being a part of the community,
Yes.
like what do you experience in community? You experience like each other's company. You have a great time, and you also share truths with each other. You help each other through struggles and things like that. And we want to be real on here.
Yes.
We want to be honest. We want to be truthful. Share in community.
Yep.
Provide fresh perspectives.
Yep.
Like all these things, and we want to do that and hear from people around the church that do so much amazing work in the church that don't have a platform, that maybe don't have a voice.
That's right.
We want to give them one here.
Yep.
To bring people in and say like tell us, thinking about children's ministry or youth ministry, like getting able to sit down with the youth team and going like, hey, what are things you guys face every day, and like what. I think it'll provide additional insight, additional tips even, but also just like, let's talk about some new fresh ideas. Let's talk about some inspiration for this area, or hear someone who works in the communication department. Like what does an average day look like?
That's right.
And additionally, one thing we want to do is sitting down with Jeff, lead pastor. You just want to get to know everyday Jeff. Yeah. I know personally and I've told him this before, some of my favorite interactions with him were not necessarily on the stage or like via a sermon.
On a professional level,
Yeah, but we were just sitting down and having a coffee.
That's right.
And that insight and that like renewal of my mind and perspective and even my heart posture in some like that's been some of the stuff that has stuck with me, and so we want this to open up.
That's right.
You
Which is why we will always have a cup of coffee. At least Ben and I will always have a cup of coffee with us.
Yes,
we want you to pull up your chair, and if you're going to grace, if we get to grace your ears on the regular, we want to make sure that this is a podcast that is adding value to you and not something that you need to endure.
Yeah.
So just pull up your favorite beverage, whatever that may be. Sit down. Maybe you have to put it in the cup holder of your car because you're commuting somewhere to or from work. We hope that this is a value add to your life, to your conversation, not something that we're asking you to endure.
Be safe with your cup of coffee in the car. Make sure it's not too hot. Share a funny story unrelated to coffee.
Yes.
About safety in a vehicle. And how it's very important. I was driving down the road the other day.
As if this needs to be said.
That
is very important. Safety in a car.
Please. I was driving down the road the other day, and my wife and I, we just like made this delicious white chili. And so I spoon a bunch, I get a big bowl. I mean, it's a nice size bowl.
In the car?
No, in
the house?
Yeah.
Okay, before you leave.
Before I left. So I get a nice bowl, and I sit down, and then I get a text message. This is about at 7:30 p.m. at night, and I'm enjoying it, and then I get a text message. It's a group message, and someone says, "Sorry, I'll be 30 minutes late." And I'm going like, what are they talking about? And apparently, what I had realized in that moment was, oh no, I forgot about a meeting I had, a group meeting I had later that night at 8 p.m. So I'm about a 45 minutes drive away from this meeting, and I go, I have to be there. It was really important that I had to be there. So, anyways, take my bowl of chili, jump in the car. And I have it between my legs as I'm driving, hands 10 and 2.
10 and 2.
And I want to keep it there, keep it safe, because I wanted to get some food before, otherwise I probably would have passed out.
That's right.
So, but sure enough, I do have to hit my brakes a little more intensely than just a leisure stop. And the bowl of chili flips out of the seat. I hear it hit the ground. And I'm just expecting the biggest, soupiest mess you could ever imagine.
All of your pedals, your shoes.
I can't, and it's nighttime, so I can't.
Oh, the worst. You don't fully know the damage.
No. So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting. So I pull the car over, and I was like, I need to get a light on. Pull it over, turn the light on, and I look down, and the bowl of chili is right side up. Chili's still in the bowl.
No.
And I'm like, what just happened?
No.
And I'm going, where's the chili? Because I was expecting to be all over my shoes, the carpet, the seat, probably. And what essentially had happened, bowl was right side up, in between my legs as I'm driving, hit the brakes, it slips out and goes forward, does a front flip, one rotation, lands back on its quote-unquote feet, and the only splatter was basically just like an impact splatter. So when the bowl hit the ground, hit the floor of the car right side up, it just had like if you were to probably drop a spoon in it, it just had like a little drop toward the side of the door. So my bowl of chili was saved.
So does this speak to the thickness of the chili, or does it speak to the provision of God protecting your shoes?
I think God is after the greater good. And in that case, it was, I needed to eat or pass out, possibly. Well, behind the wheel, so eating the chili was more important in that day. So
all that to say, just remember, when you're driving, hands at 10 and 2.
10 and 2, even if you
Eyes on the road.
Eyes on the road.
And that's the great thing about this being a podcast. You don't got to watch nothing. You don't need to see us. Just listen to these voices talking to you.
Yeah.
Listen to some great conversations with your bean or whatever you're drinking.
And in all seriousness, though, like, God's in the little things, whether he was there with the bowl of chili or not, I think it's a little silly, perhaps, but don't, something that's been really valuable in my life, I don't want to ever, like, underestimate God or put him in an area like, oh, he couldn't possibly provide for the safety of my bowl of chili.
That's right.
But in actuality, he could if he wanted to.
He could if he wanted to.
And
on this particular day, he did.
Yeah. Amen. So today I'm drinking a latte, actually.
An in-house latte. This was made in Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, yes, the in-house from One and All Cafe here in Southern California. They have delicious food, delicious coffee.
Yes.
So that's what I'm enjoying. And
yeah, I have the...
what are your reviews on the Klatch coffee versus your home brewed?
So I'm a firm believer.
Without ruining any sponsorship,
Yeah.
from Klatch Coffee.
So
I'm kidding.
I get the beans of the homebrew are from Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's, classic store, so good. It's their organic, fair trade certified morning blend medium roast coffee. Very good bean. Now,
nice.
I am a firm believer, and I think science is also a firm believer, that water matters.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. Probably, if I had to throw
in
a
the
percentage
flavor,
on it,
in the taste of the
that's
coffee.
right, and the process of it. And so I would say Southern California water is not great, and I don't use filtered water. I use tap water. So if that, we might have lost some sponsorships.
Yeah. That'll affect it.
Yeah, that'll. But that's I am. You talk about transparency.
Yeah.
I am not in a position where I'm going to spend my money on filtered water. It's good though, because I brew it in a toddy. This is some redemption here. I brew it in a toddy system, and with some really good ratios of bean to water. But the water matters. So Klatch coffee, just top notch coffee. Probably, I'm assuming, top notch water. And my homebrew, upper echelon coffee, or above average coffee, and very below average water. But it's great.
Yeah.
And I drink it every day.
I don't know what it is, so this might come up in some later episodes, but we actually do have quite a number of Australians and New Zealand native people here that are, some are on staff, some like heavy volunteers, some are just on team. I actually lived in Australia for a few years, Sydney mainly, but have been pretty much all up and down the entire east coast of Australia. And there's, I will say, and Steve Maharg, one of the campus pastors here at One and All.
You will inevitably hear his voice on this podcast at some point.
Talk about all sorts of coffee, but they do it right, and I don't know what it is. You mentioned water being like a big part of it.
Would you
I still
agree
haven't figured
with
it
that?
out. I don't know. I'm not a barista. There might be a barista listening to this going, "Come on, guys." It's how you steam your milk, because you steam it right. The sugars of the milk sweeten the coffee, and it's the balance of milk to a shot.
Well, I just drink mine black.
Yeah. So, okay, that makes a difference.
So,
I'm drinking a kind of a what I would call a foo-foo drink. A latte, espresso, and hot milk. Sometimes in most places it tastes more like just warm milk than anything coffee. But I think a nice balance is you can really taste the bean, really taste the notes of the espresso, but then the milk kind of adds a layer of sweetness as well as just creaminess, obviously. But today's cup brought to you by the One and All Cafe and
Trader Joe's and Klatch.
Trader Joe's and Klatch Coffee. They've been delicious.
Yeah, it's been a really good bean.
Yeah. So those are the drinks of the day, and these will come. We're gonna try and do this as many episodes as possible. Do a little coffee review. So if you enjoy coffee and have recommendations, hopefully when we get some deeper into it, we can be provide more of an expert insight. But I like to say I have a nice palate for coffee. I will. Yeah. I have been noted to say I will drink water off of a tire. At the same time,
you've had a couple cups of coffee that have been described that way.
Yeah,
so
of course.
We are open to anything, and we will try anything because you can't put a price on free.
Yep. Amen. And Jeff's got quite a palate for coffee as well. Steve Maharg.
That's right.
I mean, we got people around here, so we're gonna engage in some very nice bean conversation.
Very nice bean conversation. That's right. All throughout this podcast, you guys are in for a treat. This is going to be great. This is just episode 1, so get ready.
Yeah.
We got a lot of fun stuff planned, and it is only going to progress up and to the right from this point on. If it makes you feel better, to all the listeners, this is the worst One and All podcast you will hear. Everyone from this point forward will get better. This is bottom of the barrel.
Well, you want to start low.
This is unfiltered water.
This is water off the
brew
tire.
coffee.
This is water off the tire.
This is your worst cup of coffee, everybody. And with that, Ben,
looking forward to it.
Looking forward to the future of this. Any last thoughts on where this thing is headed?
No, to God be the glory. We want to let people in, and we want to praise God as we do it.
That's right.
And acknowledge Him and glorify Him for everything that He's done in our lives and so
all He's done in this church, all He's doing for the lives that we get to touch. Actually, I'm really glad that you brought this up. That I would say that is the overarching point of this podcast is we're going to talk about a lot of stuff on here. Some's going to be lighthearted, some's going to be heavy hitting, some's going to be from great communicators, some's going to be from me. Not so on the opposite end of the spectrum, not a great communicator, but all of it, no matter what we're talking about, is a representation of Jesus and the gospel. And so the overarching tone of this podcast is conversations about Jesus, whether we are explicitly using His name or not. That's why we're doing this. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're bringing people in, because Ben and I genuinely want people to experience the gospel, experience Jesus in a really profound way. And as many ways and as many opportunities as we can provide for that to happen, that's why we're here. That's
Amen.
it.
I'll cheers to that.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to that episode of the One and All podcast. This is episode 1, and we have a great set of shows coming your way in the future, and we hope that you continue on this journey with us. But you don't have to wait for that next episode. You can actually get involved in what we're doing at One and All right now. You can visit us here in Southern California. Find a location. You can visit us at oneandall.church. You can attend on the weekend at live.oneandall.church. There's opportunities for you to serve both locally and globally. We would love to get involved with you and help you take your next step in this relationship. Also, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast. That way you don't miss any future episodes that come out. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this is the One and All podcast.